Well, thank you so much for clicking play and joining me on this episode of She Got Next. I am always excited to talk to whoever says yes, but especially today, I'm joined by my guest. Her name is Ashtyn Butuso. She is a producer and writer at OffBall. Hey, Ashtyn, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Like I said, I'm very excited to talk to you, especially because we've been trying to get this scheduled. Life happens. But we've been in each other's orbit. I was trying to think about this, like 10, 12 years, but we've never had a legit conversation.
Yeah.
I have been following you probably a little too closely because I've always just thought of you as being very cool. And now you have this very cool job at OffBall. For those of you that don't know, if you go to offball.news, you'll see this right at the top. OffBall is sport, culture, curated daily. And the first thing that came to my mind with that, I don't know if you're a big Sex and the City fan, but I think of Samantha Jones saying, like, the motherfucker's concise. I'm like, that is concise. That is what OffBall is. Yep. And here's a deeper description of it. No aggregation, no clickbait, no AI, no hot takes. We're a team of real people continuously searching for the stuff you love because we love it too. I think that sounds fantastic, but I actually think it's the other way around. I think you guys are cool. You find stuff that you love and you're telling us to love it as well. Tell me what you think about that.
Yeah, I think there's a little of that as well. I'm writing the daily newsletter, so I try to, obviously, inevitably, my algorithm sends me cool, sporty stuff, and I like to pass it on in whatever way possible. And like having the job of being online, which is pretty much the job, as you know, when you're in this world, lends itself to just sort of like being the first to know certain things. So I think that definitely does happen for sure.
Well, you kind of quietly said, I write the newsletter. The newsletter is dense. It comes out every single day. Yeah. And I try my best to read it in the morning because it kind of informs what I think about the rest of the day. But it takes a while to get through it. But I think, again, like the fact I started off by saying in the description, I should say, that you guys think it's cool and you want us to think it's cool too, because I think there's a particular lens with which you see the world that is attractive to brands like OffBall. Like Ashtyn has a style. It's like a quiet swag. It's a cool confidence. And when I read the newsletter, that is the vibe that I'm picking off from OffBall. It's not so much like, hey, dummy, how do you not know this? But here's the cool thing that's connected to sports and culture that we think you might enjoy.
I'm glad it feels like that because that's kind of exactly, I think you crushed it in describing it. Probably described it a lot better than I do. People tell me I don't do a great job explaining what I do or selling myself or all the things, So yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly how I want it to feel. And it is very dense. It's a big job actually. But I am such a fan of newsletters as well. So I feel like, when you love something, you obviously try harder at it, but I also just enjoy delivering that to people because also I think that we're in some ways experiencing content fatigue and people don't want to necessarily be scrolling through all this stuff. So if I can, me and OffBall in our, I'm the newsletter, but we also have social and our homepage. If we can deliver all of that to people without them being online, that's great too, because I have some friends that have like gone fully offline and they're like, I wouldn't have known about this, but your newsletter told me. I'm like, there we go.
I think I only learned about it because I've been following you on social and I was immediately attracted to it because it is a place where you can get everything. And it's not where you have to be chronically online, finding all of the individual leagues and athletes that you enjoy, and then their clothing lines. And then also their other secondary Instagram and their other TikTok. It's like, here's a place where you can get it all. Tell me a bit about how you decide what makes it into the newsletter, given there's thousands of sports stories happening all day, every day.
Yeah.
What's the checklist like? If it meets this, and this.
There's always going to be 2 blocks that are like the meat of it that are like, okay, what thing do we absolutely have to talk about today? Because everyone, if you're a sports fan, you need to know about this. And one of them will frequently be like more newsy and maybe the other one's more like just sort of my ramblings, my musings. And then I want to make sure I'm getting like super newsy links for people at the top to provide like, here's the latest, and not really go full in depth on them, but just like, here, you should read this. This is a good thing from the internet yesterday, or in the last few hours or whatever. And then, I'd say, I think the other thing we try to do is put on other creators. So if someone has a Substack specifically, we've been going pretty hard on like creator Substacks because it's just fun introducing people to a new creator, a new writer, something new. And there's so many amazing creators on social, on Substack that have podcasts that deserve a little bit of shine. So it's sort of just like, hey, let me put you onto this person that you should be following in some way. I like to do that as much as I possibly can, especially for smaller ones, because there are so many. Sometimes I find the largest creators are in some ways the least interesting to me, and the smaller creators have a little bit more perspective. And yeah, so I'd say I emphasize putting other creators on as well.
I've noticed that. I have discovered some folks that I think I don't think I would have discovered otherwise had I not signed up for the newsletter. And I also agree. I don't think this is a thing you should agree to or not, but I agree. Like, when I see the newsletter, it does kind of start with some of those larger profiles that you might find at the New York Times or the Athletic. And then you get into like clothing line discussions or the new creative director at Puma or this athlete did this and that. And then you also get like, oh yeah, and this guy ran for 150 yards against the terrible Cowboys defense on Sunday. Here's his wife who wore this cute outfit. So it really is kind of touching every aspect of sports in the newsletter and on the website. And I have to say, like, I have admitted to this on the show that it took me a while, and I still have some residual effects with this. It took me a while to really kind of embrace what's going on with expanding how sports is marketed towards women. Decades ago, I was pretty like anti, here's a site where you learn how to wear your ponytail if you wear this baseball hat, or here's a cocktail you can make for your boyfriend as he watches the Super Bowl. Like, I was very angry about that because, of course, there have been fans of women. Women have been fans of sports forever, and they've been in the industry of sports forever. And it just seemed lame to me to kind of dumb it down. In my way, that's how I interpret it, as a dumbing down. But I think now, especially because of how social media works, brands have really thought we need to expand our customer base, our fan base, by telling the stories of the whole athlete. And when they have a clothing line, or they have a new child, or they've been traded and now they're in the movie, like whatever those things are, it's okay to talk about that stuff. Yeah. And OffBall has helped me be okay with that.
I love that. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something I have also battled. I think it's I think about the psychology of this so much, probably way too much, because I think growing up as a sports fan, you're pressured by sort of like the boys in school to like prove yourself. And so you sort of unintentionally, subconsciously have this chip on your shoulder that's like, well, I don't want anyone to think I'm dumb or just care about the outfits or whatever the thing is, and B, like, I want them to respect me. And in order to do that, I have to engage in the game in this certain way. Yeah. And I have felt that for so long. And it's something I still fight, because I'm like, no, actually, you don't have to engage with the game in any way at all. There are actually whatever rules we thought we had to abide by, those were totally fake and made up. And now it's okay to care that someone ran 150 yards against the Cowboys defense, and also go, oh, cool, his wife, has a show or whatever the thing is. So yeah, it's so interesting, because I'm with you. And I think like when we first met, I won't name names, but I was working for a company that I think did a profile or some kind of episodic thing with you, or like ran a pilot or something that was like, we were recipes or something. Yeah. And even at the time, I remember being like, okay, like I'm trusting them, and like I'm basically the only employee, so like I don't really have much sway or any thoughts on this that I can necessarily share. But there was also like the how to style your baseball hat and all these things that still, to me, I'm gonna like, ugh. I'm still not there, but I think there are ways to be less strict and stringent about how to engage with the game.
Yeah, I'm still evolving on it. Like I said, there's still some residual hate when I see particular things. And that's just, I think, a lack of understanding of the sports fan. I think it's a hard thing, right? Like, I think we're similar in that, like you said, we grew up liking sports. I played everything year round through college, my early years of college. I wasn't that great at it, but I kept going. But I feel like if you don't grow up watching sports, understanding the rules, knowing the lingo, if you become like 20, 30, 40 years old, it's hard to get in, especially because of what you said. A lot of times if you meet, go out to a bar or something and you're watching a game and a guy comes up and you tell him you know what you're watching, then it's like you got to prove yourself. Well, what year were they drafted? What do they play in college? And what was their number? And you're like, maybe you know those things, maybe you don't, but that doesn't make you more of a sports fan than somebody else. But wanting to feel like, yeah, I know what I'm talking about, while also caring about their tunnel outfits. It's like a hard thing you're still trying to figure out.
I know. And like you said, doing it in your 20s, 30s, 40s, it's sort of like moving to a new country or something as an adult, or like learning a new language. All of a sudden at 40, you're like, this is weird.
This is hard.
This is hard. I don't want to do this. So it's a nice little entrance into the game for sure.
Yeah. I mentioned the fact that I've always thought you were cool, that quiet confidence and a very, you can sit at my table kind of way, not mean girls at all. But I'm wondering for you, like being in a world where you get to curate content, you have a particular point of view. Where were you first kind of nurtured in that? Where do you go? Where were you in the beginning to think like, these are the things that help me understand sports, love sports, and want to share it?
Yeah, I was watching and playing as a kid, and I had this dream in high school of, being on ESPN, and the same dream that we've all had. And at some point in college, I answered a listing on Craigslist for a student editor job at the school's football team. So I would be like editing, video editing, coaches' film and highlights, and shooting as well. And it was very scary, but I was like, this is the way in. And so I guess I taught myself to edit then. Maybe I'd edited a little bit in high school just on fun little projects, but I guess I taught myself to edit then, and eventually parlayed that into a job at Pac-12 Networks, which rest in peace. And they were like I got very lucky because I think they also just needed editors, but they were also very specifically, Nick Yardley, who was my boss, was like, we want a woman to be editing because that's not very, it's not something you see often. So I think that helped, and was a fun, it's nice to imagine that someone was looking out for, a marginalized group, whatever, at the time. Something I feel like we're losing a little bit now.
Yeah, it's a 2 steps forward, 10 steps back situation.
Yes, exactly. And then, so from then it's just sort of been like saying yes to all the things. I put myself in a lot of like scary situations so that I can learn a lot. I feel like I've done that a lot of times, and that's probably the thing I am most thankful for, that I know not everyone can always do that. So I have been lucky that I've been in a position where I can take a risk like that. And B, I'm just grateful that I've listened to myself and not overthought, and just taken risks and tried new jobs, and been a shooter and a writer and a producer and a editor and all the things, because I just love, I guess I just love creating content, which is something I don't think I would usually say, but is true.
Yeah. And I think even saying things like create content is still kind of a new concept, right?
Yeah.
Like, you've been doing it for a very long time and didn't necessarily have that kind of title, but that's what you're doing. And I think it's pretty interesting. You said you saw the listing at Oregon State, right? Oregon State football team. You said yes to that. Like you said, we all had the dream of being on ESPN at some point. You knowing and seeing that and thinking this could be my first step in. That was like a conscious thing for you. I'm surprised by that because I didn't think about roles other than just being on ESPN. I didn't think about all the various roles that are in sports. But tell me a little bit about that experience, because it must have been pleasant enough for you to want to continue working in it. But take me back in time a bit, what that was like.
Yeah, it was really fun. I mean, it was a different time, certainly. I don't even know what a practice, for instance, or a game looks like now. But like back then, we had shooters that were shooting practice, runners that would grab the tapes or I guess they were tapes, cards, maybe at the end, run them back to us, and we have to edit it. And coaching is such a crazy thing to witness so firsthand, because you have to finish that immediately, because after practice is over, they are going to go watch that film immediately. Like after the game, it was like sprint down, get all this stuff on each coach's iPad, sprint the iPads to the bus. They have to watch it on the bus, and they're forgetting their passwords, and you're just like, oh my God, this is crazy. They're like, what's my password? I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, and then there was also the element of like shooting. I was also doing the creative stuff. Every Friday, the team would watch a highlight film from last week to get them ready for the Saturday game. So I was also shooting a lot of that at practice and then at games, and then editing that. So it was like I was working. I also had 2 other jobs at the time. So I think in college, I was probably working like 60-hour weeks, because I also you don't make any money. I made like $1,000 a semester or something. Oh God. So I had to have actual real jobs too, because I had to pay my rent and my tuition and all the things, which of course my tuition is not paid still. But so yeah, it's just it's such a. I hope that kids are still just embracing the craziness in those early days, because just saying yes to something and then you get there and you go, okay, how can I turn this into the next thing? How can being around this get me to that place? Because that's honestly, when people are like, I'm job searching. It's like, I feel for those people, because it's just like a mess. Job searching is terrible. So
right now it's crazy.
Yeah. So I'm like, everywhere I go, and I think there's also an authentic way to do this, by the way. It's like, because I also want to help people that are doing the same thing, but like, making connections in any way, shape, and form is just like so valuable. It's just, and you can be a student editor and, turn that into working in TV. It's not easy, but it's that easy. You know what I mean? So yeah. I think it's just a matter of seeing a greater vision. Like, I'm taking this, and how am I going to use this momentum and find the pockets within this space where I can reach out and have those connections and use them.
It's funny because the way you're describing it, I'm like, it doesn't sound that much different from OffBall. You've got to turn around this stuff so quickly, find the highlights, get them out there, write something about it, and get us ready and excited to read it every morning. I think it gets in my inbox at like 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it's a little early for the West Coast. I'm like, should we move that? I don't know.
No, it lands at the perfect time for me.
Okay, great.
Another thing that I have found interesting about your journey is, you kind of called it out, doing a lot of different things. Yeah. You're writing, you're directing, you're editing. And I know with your basketball besties, you've created a magazine called Flagrant magazine. Yes. And here's what it says on the website about what Flagrant magazine is. It's an inclusive print publication that unearths the stories surrounding the culture of basketball, including the artists, communities, projects, and fans. We believe that creating equity in sports starts with providing equal coverage to all. That sounds very purposeful and intentional. And I want to back up before you even dive into the details that I just read, just starting with the fact that it's a print publication. In the world of dying print, why was it important for you, again, in your basketball besties, to create a magazine that you can hold and flip through?
Yeah,
it's everyone's online all the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's so we started in 2019, and especially then, I think there's been a small resurgence in print, which has been nice, but especially then, it was so foreign. But there were a couple magazines that I really loved. There's one called Season, that's a women's soccer magazine in the UK, so women's football. And I was such a big fan, and I loved ESPN magazine. And I remember, cutting things out of them and framing the things I cut out, and like just having fun collaging, and also taking a quiet moment to, I mean, if you are someone that doesn't very often, it's amazing the feeling you get from putting your phone like in another room and sitting down and turning pages. Even if you're not like fully reading articles, it's like so meditative. And it's such a different experience than, NBA Twitter, which I also love, and all the things, but it's such a different feeling because you just get to sit there and connect with the physical pages while you're connecting with the story as well, which is just, there's no blue light in your face. Like you don't feel all the things that we don't even notice that just like make us irritable throughout the day or whatever it is. Like, not to be like wellness girly, because I'm like not really, but it's just it's such an enriching experience, whereas being on your phone most of the time is not an enriching experience. That's not, I shouldn't say most, because a lot of good comes from social and engaging and all those things. But yeah, we just knew we wanted it to be print because it's just something that's so special, and hopefully will feel special forever. And I've made a lot of magazine friends since then that have other magazines, and it's also been a community builder in that way. Yeah, it's almost like similar to something like collecting sneakers or whatever. It just feels more like an artifact that you can have and display, and it feels like you bought art. It feels like you purchased art when you bought it too. So yeah, it's a whole different ballgame for sure.
It definitely is. And how you're describing it just makes me feel like it's a lasting thing that you, like you said, turn the pages and go back to months from now, as opposed to, being online. It's the next story, right? It's all just kind of shuffling down, getting pushed down. It's even like if you're binge watching something on Netflix, they spend all these months creating this show, these 10 episodes, and you watch it in one weekend.
Yeah.
And then it's gone. And
then you never go back. It's kind of wild. Like, I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, there are some shows that I loved that I probably will never watch again. It's so wild.
I'm watching The Diplomat right now. I've been a Carrie Russell fan forever, of course. But I'm not letting myself watch more than 2 episodes a week, because I just want to have that feeling of
so nice
excitement around a new episode. It's really hard. Yeah. People keep spoilers are all over the interwebs.
Oh yeah. Actually, I need to watch that show because I just bought speaking of buying art, I just bought a piece of art from an actor. I found out she's an actress in that show. She was doing a stoop sale. My friend was like, let's go to my friend's stoop sale. She's in my neighborhood, whatever. And I'm like, oh, I love that piece of art. And I'm like, not an art. I mean, I'm an art, like sports art buyer, obviously behind me, you can see, but like, it was not sports. It's like going to be the first thing I have in my house. It's like not sports. But so I bought it, and then we left or whatever. My friend's like, oh yeah, she's in, or I was like, oh, I need to pick it up because it's really big, whatever. And my friend was like, oh, well, she's on set. She's like out of the country filming The Diplomat or something. I'm like, what? What are you talking about?
Get on board, Ashtyn. 3rd season just dropped. It's so good.
I know. I'm like, yeah, I'm due to start that any minute. Yeah.
But it's good stuff. So now that we've talked about the print aspect of it, again, the ending description of it, the last line that you guys have, we believe that creating equity in sports starts with providing equal coverage to all. Tell me about that. Like, that clearly means to me that you think coverage wasn't equal at the time of starting Flagrant. Tell me about what it was like and what kind of improvements potentially you're seeing in coverage.
Yeah, so it was so interesting. Even as 2019 is not that long ago, but the coverage has obviously changed so much as the world and the internet and all the things have changed. At the time, it was almost like the two genders, or the two, men's and women's basketball, I should say, not the two genders, is sort of siloed off. So it was ESPN and ESPNW, and that always bothered me because immediately the assumption is then that I don't want both served to me. I want one or the other. Yeah. And I felt like in siloing those two off, you're completely cutting out the rest of the people that could be fans that you haven't even given a chance to. Just because someone likes men's basketball doesn't mean they won't also like women's basketball. But now they have to go find it. It's harder for them to find it unless they're searching for it already. So we always wanted to tell all genders, all levels, because the bottom line is if you love basketball, you love basketball. And that's always what we've believed. And that's how we feel. And that's how we look at it. And I think now there's sort of siloed off again in a different way, in the sense that just women's sports exist and Together exists, and these are all places I follow, and I'm not disparaging what they're doing at all because I love what they're doing. But that I think is more for people who are just fans of women's sports, which I can understand as well. But I'd say even still, I'm just like, I just love sports. So I watch all the sports. And obviously that meant as a child growing up watching more men's sports because that's what was accessible. So I'm like, well, I don't want to lose that part. And I think there's probably a lot of people that also don't want to lose that part. And so putting them together and putting women's basketball in front of people that are buying it because they're men's basketball fans is like invaluable. They are introduced to a whole new world. So that was kind of always our thought and what we've always aimed to do.
Well, what's it been like? How's it been having this magazine with, again, your basketball besties? What does that feel like as an entrepreneur and bringing friends together on a project like this?
Yeah, it's been really lovely. I mean, I've learned more than I could have ever imagined just from like business ownership and all the things I never even thought I would do. But it's a very arduous process. Like making a magazine is crazy. It's like wild. People will be like, I want to start a magazine. Like, can you give me some advice? And I'm like, it's more like text me if you have a question, because you're just every day is like a new mix of craziness. There's no like blanketed advice, but it's also opened the door to so much more for us in terms of community. We have our Discord, which is so fun, and everyone in our Discord is best friends with each other. They go to each other's weddings. They fly across country to meet each other. Like, it's very beautiful. And we've done WNBA watch parties with big brands like Cash App. We did a full Twitter issue in partnership with Twitter. It's led us to so many fun partnerships with Nike or Adidas or whoever the sports brand is. And that's been something that's very fun, just trying new things.
What's interesting about that to me is like, that community building part of it is so top of mind. You wrote about it in today's newsletter about big brands who, well, obviously we know every brand wants to make money, but there have been some bigger brands that have stepped up to creating unique experiences. And again, in your perspective, really trying to create community. Giving out free tickets or creating environments where creatives, individuals like yourself, like me, maybe can experience sports in a different way. And so to have Flagrant kind of modeling that, like beyond just creating that, but also having watch parties and things, I think that's huge. And community right now is the buzzword, right? Everyone wants us to build community, but it's so important to have that authentic space and vibe. So people know, like, in the end, you're not just kind of selling them something, but it's really about going to each other's weddings.
Yes, exactly. Great way to bring that back.
Well, something you also mentioned, I want to go back to because I skipped over it, but I want to go back to this because we mentioned a couple of times here, we grew up watching sports ourselves. And another challenge for me, in addition to how sports have been marketed to women initially, with the pink version of the jersey and the baby doll tee, it is the siloing of sports. It's ESPN, and then there's ESPNW, or like you said, just women, or Together, The Gist, all incredible platforms, publications, people who want to educate, inspire, all of those things. But it does still feel weird to me, because if you go to ESPN, even today, if you want to go to the WNBA page, it's not listed. It says like basketball,
it's in the drop down.
MLB, that's in the drop down, or even the women's tennis. I think women's professional tennis is much more popular.
Totally.
When it's bracket time, it's US Open or Wimbledon, it's the men's bracket that's there first. And you got to find the dates for the women. So it's like, we know these other platforms are necessary, but are we still othering women's sports? And how do we make it so you find it all in one place.
Yeah.
And it's not like they do it too. They do it okay. But I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is.
Yeah.
And maybe the younger generation is going to help kind of blend it together for older.
I hope so.
But yeah, it still feels pretty siloed.
Yeah, the younger generation has got a lot on their plates, but they need to help us in a lot of ways.
The planet is on fire. Does democracy still work? And also, what are we going to do about how we're marketing to women? There's so many things on the to-do list here.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm also a basketball fan, and I've admitted, I think also on the show, that it took me a while to get into the WNBA, not because I thought it was terrible or anything, but I'm a fan of all sports. So I go like to every season, turn. So after football, I'm getting into basketball. After basketball, I'm getting into baseball. And coming from the Bay, being a Warriors fan, basketball didn't end until June. So I'm ready for baseball. But in the last couple of years, I think the WNBA did what the NBA did. They were lucky to get a rivalry that went from college hoops, because I love women's college basketball. Yeah. But they got a rivalry that went from college hoops to the professional league. And that's where fans were fed and sustained. Yeah. And I wonder if it's Bird and Magic going from college to the pros in the same way that we've seen Angel and Caitlin. Yeah. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah. I mean, I really hope they get the CBA thing figured out, because it would be such a shame to not have it next season, like especially riding this momentum. But I agree. I mean, the thing is, like, I would even argue the women's storylines are more interesting at this point than that. Like, I think the WNBA is more interesting than the NBA at this point, because there's just so much going on, and these women are so dynamic, and they haven't been able to just be athletes in the same way that men can just be athletes and go along, so there's so much more to them, which I think is very great. And I think finally we've seen those stories sort of blow up, and they've been served to us, and it's creating, a more engaged audience. And I think that's the sort of like Angel Caitlins of the world, rivalries, help everything. So yeah, it's been very fun to watch.
I think the WNBA has done a good job maybe in helping to create different storylines or maintain storylines, and again, broaden the fan base. And I wonder, again, because of your creative director lens, content creator lens, what you think they or any other brand out there, professional league or team, is doing really well in helping to inform and inspire and engage fans. Again, it's like a new world that we're kind of living in, but you're out there curating all this content. You're going to all of these sites, reading all these articles, and feeding it to the newsletter subscribers. So, like, who do you think is doing a really good job at that?
I think the NFL does a pretty good job at delivering. I'm trying to think if it's actually the league or if it's like team specific, but I feel like the social admins, like maybe specifically for the NFL, do a good job at telling stories and introducing you to players in a way that maybe the NBA doesn't. And of course, I think the WNBA is probably the best. Oh, I think Unrivaled is even better than the W. Actually, their social last year was so fun. It was like you constantly were learning something new about all the players, which was amazing. And I think also just having them in one town helps with that as well.
They're all in these two hotels. We can trap you here.
Yeah. So I think that sort of lends itself to that. So I'd probably say, Unrivaled and the NFL are two that I think are kind of crushing.
Are there any particular athletes that you think are creative directing their way into telling really great stories about their brand?
I think Anthony Edwards is doing a really good job at that. In the sense that he's saying yes to random things. He's doing a random award show on a YouTube channel, and Timothy Chalamet shows up. Like, that's as good as it gets. And I would say it's hard to even choose in the W, because they're all doing that in various ways. But I think, like, from business people perspective, I would say Nafisa Collier and Brianna Stewart kind of crush that. They're very, like, it's, exactly what they're into and what they are willing to buy into in their ventures and all those things. And I would say, from an authenticity perspective, the person I always point to is Natasha Cloud, who pretty much shares like everything about herself in terms of her passions and her beliefs. And I think that's really valuable and something you don't see from athletes because everyone's afraid of brand deals and all the things. And I think it's cool to just have someone that's fully authentic. Yeah.
Did Natasha just do, I think it was probably a link that you shared. She did an interview with the New York Times.
Yes. Yeah.
The Love.
Yeah. She was on Modern Love. Yeah.
Modern Love.
Yeah.
That was so good. Again, I would not have found that story.
Yes. I love to hear that. I love to hear that.
I'm not getting paid for these advertisements.
This is not sponsored.
Neither is Netflix or the Diplomat. Nobody's I like to ask these last 4 questions in the last 5 minutes of all my guests.
Okay.
So they're not scary. So people typically go like, what? My first question for you is about your first sports memory. Can you immediately going back to an early sports memory of yours, watching a game, playing a game, being in the stands, seeing a movie?
First sports memory. I think the first sports memory is my dad was a big Rams fan. And so probably my first sports memory was when I was very little. Like we would circle the pick'ems in the newspaper, like, and he would sort of like submit his, bets through whatever friends he was playing with or whatever. So we would do that a lot every week. It was like, okay, who do you think's going to win this week? Whatever. And then there was a lot of watching the Rams, which was like the Kurt Warner, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt era. And a lot of like, we would play while we watched. So it was a lot of like diving catches into the couch. It's sort of like during timeouts and stuff, and just like really asking so many questions, like learning every rule. And it was really hard at the time to learn all the rules of football because there's a lot of ruls in football.
There's so many. Well, why did that happen? Why are you not allowed to do this?
Yeah. No. Why are they stopping? What is going on? I would say those are probably the very first like memories I have of sports.
Couch football is best.
Yes.
All right. What about a sports movie that you have on repeat or that you quote frequently?
I would probably say my favorite sports movie is maybe Remember the Titans. I have like a list of my favorite movies and I'm like looking at it right now on my phone, but I just want to make sure I'm not forgetting one. But there's something about similarly like feels memory based probably as a kid watching Remember the Titans or something. That just feels like a little bit like home or something.
That's been one that's been picked before. And I asked like, what specifically about it? And it was the speech that Denzel Washington character gives, like, you can have water. Water is for losers. Hey. Not allowed to coach that way anymore. Yeah. Well, thinking about your professional journey, all the roles that you've taken on, all of the things that you've said yes to, is there anyone or a group of people that you could maybe shout out right now as people who have supported you along the way that have helped create the career that you now have?
I would say I would probably shout out. I would shout out many people at Pac-12 Network because I feel like that's where I really started to grow. But I would say Nick Yardley, like intentionally being like, we want a female editor, we want a woman to edit. Like that feels like such a big thing and a big part of my story. So I'll shout him out.
Nice. And the last question I ask is always about wanting you to share the specific ways that you're making space for the next generation of women in the industry, the industry of sports. Is there anything particular that you find yourself doing? You're like, I want to make sure that I'm the Nick for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with Flagrant specifically, we always try to have a split, as close as we can split to like marginalized people. So if people of color, queer people, women that are writing for us specifically every issue. And then I would say also, whenever someone emails me and says, can we have a call or can we have a coffee? I say yes every time. Cause I'm just like, I would have died for people to say yes to me at a time in my life. And like someday that will help them in whatever way, even very small. So.
And you said yes to She Got Next, which I am.
Yes. Even though it took forever, I was like, we're going to do it.
It only took 15 years for us to have a conversation, but it worked out.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much for joining me, Ashtyn. Yeah. It's been a great conversation. Again, I'm very inspired by the kind of career that you've created, and I'm informed about stuff that I didn't know that I needed to know by OffBall's. So thank you for that.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for watching either on YouTube, listening on Spotify, or following along on LinkedIn and Instagram. Please be sure to subscribe and share the show with everybody you've met in your entire life. Until next time.